Hello, YouTube family. Dr. Kenyon Meadows here with our third and final installment reviewing my ebook, Buy Your First Rental Property Using the Turnkey Approach. If you want to grab a copy of it, there is a link down below. And again, on InvestDoc, we talk about real estate investing in all of its multiple forms, cash flow stocks, alternative investments, focus on income investing. So as a brief recap, we were just getting into the ideal turnkey rental property from a price to rent ratio standpoint and the neighborhood, the B-level neighborhood. And you can review video number 2 for that. And we're just getting into the financial performance of a turnkey rental property. I showed you guys a pro forma, or the projections on how things would be that first year. And what we have available actually now is the actual first year numbers on my first turnkey property. Again, purchased for $75,000, June of 2014. Monthly rent at $1,000, getting 1.33% per month, so above the 1% range. We did not have any debt on this property, so taking out taxes and insurance. We had $600 worth of maintenance that year, which I think is pretty reasonable, and the property management fee. So all of that, the net income, rent minus expenses, turned out to $9,000, which turned into about a 12.1%, what we call a cash on cash return. That's a very simple metric of, how much cash did you outlay? That's your denominator. And how much net cash did you make? That's your numerator. And that comes out to 12%. Now, with real estate, it's not so simple like that, because there are some things such as some tax advantages and some depreciation that go into that calculation that can actually make your return quite a bit higher. So, but again, that's a simple metric. And I think a reasonable thing to aim for is 10% at minimum. Okay. Now, we're using the turnkey approach. So we're depending on a third-party company to ultimately secure these properties for us. And that's really the key, because, if you don't have a great turnkey provider, they can really ruin the whole experience. And so my vetting list includes online reviews, and I put a big plug in for the website biggerpockets.com for that. I asked the turnkey provider, can I talk to some current investors that currently have properties? And that was very useful. That prevented me from making an investment in Indianapolis specifically. And actually an on-site visit. And this was, a hassle, some expense, but I did take visits to some markets well beyond the driving range, including Cleveland, Ohio, to look on the ground at what the inventory looked like, what the property management office look like, things of that nature. I mean, it's a big investment. And so to me, it was worth doing. Now, I did talk to some investors who were comfortable making purchases clear across the country without making a site visit. I know investors that have several rental properties they've never seen, and so bought sight unseen. They interface with the manager and that kind of thing, make some executive decisions when it's time to evict somebody or make a repair and everything, and it's totally a distance thing. And so it all depends on your level of comfort. A couple of things that I cover in the ebook is that you could do is also hiring a third-party appraiser to make sure the value that you're paying for the house is in line with the market value. There are some turnkey companies that they try to make, I think, above and beyond a decent profit margin and quite honestly overcharge for the property. So that's one thing you want to do. And I do a home inspection. I want somebody, a third party set of eyes in there looking over the renovations and making sure everything's up to speed so that I don't get surprised by anything early on into my ownership experience, a big repair or some negligence. Okay. I want to give a shout out to the Real Wealth Network. This is an organization. They basically have affiliate relationships with multiple turnkey providers, and they have a very good podcast, and I get a lot of useful information from them. Now, full disclosure, I've never bought a property from them. Okay. So I can't speak to their specific affiliates and their network of turnkey providers. But the thing I liked about them is that they provided this checklist of things that you'd want to have done to your newly renovated property prior to having a tenant move in. And it's fairly specific, like things, for instance, like replace the roof if there's less than 10 years of life on it. Replace the furnace and boiler if there's less than 5 years. See, the key thing is you want some of these main big ticket items. You want the turnkey provider to be able to either renovate them or to verify that there's a lot of useful life left on them, because you don't want to have to shell out major repairs during the first few years of ownership, because that could really wreck your returns and really not have you make as much as you would otherwise want to. So that's a big thing for me. Roof, plumbing, electrical, those main big systems of the house. Ideally, I like to have them redone. So again, I'm not faced with any big CapEx or capital expenditures during those first few years of ownership. That contributes a lot to these things being relatively hassle-free, which is what we're all after. Now, in the course of your due diligence and some pitfalls to watch out for, liquidity. Unlike a stock, which you can easily liquidate and sell in the push of a keystroke and convert it into cash. At some point, if you want to do that with these rental properties, it's not so easy to do. You have to find a buyer. It might be a retail buyer, someone looking to live in the home. It might be an investor, but regardless, you have to list the property and negotiate, and the buyer might have to get financing, things of that nature. So it can be a few month process to sell a property if you wanted to convert it back to cash. So I think it's best to get into the rental game with a longer term mindset that you're going to hold these things for several years. Problem tenant. You could have a problem tenant that ranges from non-payment, vandalism of the home, things of that nature. Now, I do speak in the ebook too, some standards that we have in terms of screening the tenant, no prior evictions. They make at least 3 times the rent in monthly income, so there's some economic cushion, things of that nature. So you can do some things with screening to minimize this, but you can never totally predict a tenant that looks good on paper that might turn out to be a bigger headache. And so that's something you potentially would have to deal with. Haven't had a nightmare tenant to this point. I've had a few headache tenants, I will say. But even still, one of the nice things about having a property manager is they call you up, they give you a quick rundown of the problem, and your job as the owner, particularly if you're at distance, is to make an executive decision. Should we be a little lenient on this person? Should we evict them? Or when there's time to have a tenant turnover and people just normally leave and move out, hey, do we want to replace this item? Do you want to just repair it? Do we want to do X, Y, and Z in terms of the turnover of the property? Do we want to raise the rents a little bit? Those kinds of executive decisions you will have to make. But honestly, in the course of owning multiple properties, I think I spend probably about 2 hours per month managing the portfolio. Liability, the other big thing. If a tenant has a slip and fall or a tree falls on the house, and my rental properties are in Florida and they have been affected by the hurricanes that came through with some tree damage and some tenants losing temporarily being off from work, causing some delays in rent payment, things of that nature. So you got to have good insurance, and you also want to just properly maintain the physical maintenance of the property as well. Certainly you want to do that. So again, this is just an overview. I would encourage you to pick up the ebook down below, read it in some more detail, take advantage of some of the resources that I list in there. Of course, you'll join the email list. And if you have a specific question, just reply on the email list to me, reach out to me. I'll likely make a video of it because I'm sure other people will have the same question and we can learn together. I would love to hear stories of people that buy their first property and everything. So if I've been helpful in any way, please let me know. Appreciate the feedback. And to let you know, the ebook is actually a chapter in my full book, Alternative Financial Medicine, which is available on Amazon. I've been fortunate to be fairly highly reviewed from people. And this documents not only my journey into physical ownership of rental property, but I talk about the crowdfunding, I talk about private lending, I talk about other alternative forms of lending, as well as some other arenas of real estate investing as well. It's a short how-to book, very practical, and I think you'd find it useful. And the link will be down below. So I hope that you found this series on turnkey rentals very enlightening, and we will see you again on the next video. Thanks.